Hey, Mike here. I just wanted to let you know that you can listen to Dark Poutine early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime. Welcome back to Dark Poutine. I am Mike Brown. It feels like a million years since we've recorded together.
Welcome back from your secret project, Mikey.
Yeah, I am back with a vengeance.
Good for
oh my
you.
Goodness. Yeah. I can't talk about it yet, but when I can, you folks will know. And I missed you, Matthew Stockton. I really did.
Dwah.
The views, information, and opinions expressed during the Dark Poutine podcast are solely those of the producer and do not necessarily represent those of Curious Cast, its affiliate, Global News, nor their parent company, Chorus Entertainment.
Dark Poutine is not for the faint of heart or squeamish. Listener discretion is strongly advised. We're not experts on the topics we present, nor are we journalists. We're two ordinary Canadian schmucks chatting about crime and the dark side of history. Let's get to it. Put on your toque, grab yourself a double-double and a Nanaimo bar. It's time to scarf down some Dark Poutine.
You are responsible for obtaining and maintaining at your own cost all equipment needed to listen to Dark Poutine. Dark Poutine can be addictive. Side effects may include, but not be limited to, pausing and questioning the system, elevated heart rate, pondering humanity, odd looks from colleagues as you laugh out loud at work, family members not into true crime worrying about you. Positive side effects may include some perspectives and opinions that you disagree with, as well as some wokeness and empathy. If you don't think Dark Poutine is for you, consult your doctor immediately.
On June 30th, 2009, the serene waters of the Rideau Canal in Kingston, Ontario revealed a dark and tragic secret. A submerged car discovered that day contained the bodies of 3 teenage sisters of the Shafia family, Afghani immigrants from Montreal, Zainab, 19, Sahar, 17, and Geeti, 13, along with their father's first wife, Rona Muhammad Amir, 52. What initially appeared to be a tragic accident soon unraveled into a chilling tale of premeditated murder. The perpetrators, Mohammad Shafia, his second wife, Tooba Mohammad Yahya, and their eldest son, Hamed, were arrested on July 23, 2009, and later convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. This heinous act, driven by twisted notions of family honor, shocked the nation and highlighted the grim reality of honor-based violence. Join us as we delve into the harrowing details of the Shafia family murders, a case that not only captivated Canada, but also sparked crucial conversations about domestic violence and the challenges faced by immigrant families in preserving their cultural values while integrating into a new society. This is Dark Poutine episode 328, Honourless, the Shafia family murders. Mohammad Shafia was born in Afghanistan in 1952. Modest beginnings marked his early life. He did not progress past grade 8 in school and initially worked in a small store in Kabul, repairing radios and televisions. Over time, he expanded his businesses, importing and selling electronics, which laid the foundation for his eventual wealth. In an arranged marriage in 1978, Muhammad wed 20-year-old Rona Muhammad Amir, a union celebrated with a lavish wedding at Kabul's Intercontinental Hotel. However, the marriage faced challenges as Rona was unable to bear children. She'd traveled to India for repeated fertility treatments, but never became pregnant. Muhammad was not pleased that his wife could not bear children. As polygamy is allowed in Afghan culture, Mohammad Shafia was married for a second time, this time to 17-year-old Tooba Mohammad Yahya in 1989. Embattled Rona, resigned to her fate, can be seen by their side in wedding photos. He later said it was Rona's idea for him to marry a second time, but it was not so straightforward. Rona wrote in her diary, quote, "My husband started picking on me. At home, he would find fault with my cooking and serving meals, and he would find excuses to harass me. It reached a point where I had to say, 'Go and take another wife. What can I do?'" End quote. The relationship between Rona and Tooba was strained. When Tooba became pregnant with Muhammad's first child, Rona's status in the family slipped further down and lowered with each subsequent child. Zainab, the eldest and a girl, was born in early 1990. While Muhammad was pleased that Tooba could conceive and carry a child to term, he was disappointed that Zainab was not a boy. Tooba was soon pregnant again, and this time on December 30th, 1990 in Kabul, gave birth to Muhammad's son, Hamed, whom his father doted on endlessly. Taking advantage of her position, Tooba monopolized Muhammad's time, allowing Rona only one night with him out of 4. Rona wrote that her treatment was significantly worse after Hamed's birth, saying, quote, "Happiness left me."
So I think I might have a kind of unique perspective on marriage.
Yeah.
I actually think that the government shouldn't give you a marriage license. It should be a contract between people. But why does the government have to get involved? Like official, right? It should be a contract. And, you know, polygamy, I don't care. I don't care about it, right? Like, but the problem is it's so often sort of an abusive man with like multiple wives to serve, right? Sort of very patriarchal. You know, I think it should go always. Men, 3 men together, 3 women together, women and men. I don't care, as long as it's built on love and respect,
mutual trust,
and understanding, and not abusive. It's fine.
Yep.
Now, saying that, I would never be in a multi-person relationship because, oh my God, managing my one husband is enough.
Yeah. Lots of people do it, like polyamory is a thing, and
good for them, but not for me. I would just find it too darn complicated, Michael.
There you go. Sahar, another daughter, came in 1991. There would be 7 children in total, but as some were minors at the time of the murders and uninvolved directly, we cannot name them all. Rona, although deeply involved in raising the children, especially the girls who were essentially given to her, felt marginalized and trapped in an abusive, loveless marriage. She often faced severe mistreatment from both Mohammad Shafia and Tooba, who, according to her diary, referred to her as a, quote, slave and a servant. As tensions increased in the Shafia home, there was also significant political strife occurring in their home country. In 1992, Afghanistan underwent significant upheaval as the Democratic Republic of Afghanistan, led by President Mohammad Najibullah, faced collapse. The Soviet Union's dissolution in 1991, following their withdrawal from the country in 1989, left Najibullah's regime struggling against Mujahideen factions. These factions captured Kabul in April 1992, forcing Najibullah into a UN compound until the Taliban seized him in 1996. The Mujahideen's victory triggered a power struggle and a brutal civil war, with various leaders vying for the country's control. Kabul suffered immense destruction, with thousands of civilians, casualties, and severe shortages of essentials. Ethnic tensions and factional violence further fragmented the country. Internationally, countries like Pakistan, Iran, and Saudi Arabia backed different factions, worsening the conflict. The global community's neglect of Afghanistan deepened the crisis. This period marked a shift from Soviet-supported regime to a war-torn state, setting the stage for the Taliban's rise in the mid-1990s. Seeing a bleak future there, the Shafia family fled Afghanistan in 1992. The Shafia family, escaping by car, made it to the Pakistani border as a family of 6: Muhammad, Tooba, Rona, Zainab, Hamed, and Sahar. At that time, Tooba was pregnant with her 4th child, another daughter whose identity is still protected by a publication ban. We'll call her A. The next year, a 2nd son was born while the family was still in Pakistan. He's referred to as B in court documents, as his name is also protected. Geeti, Another daughter was born in 1995 before the family emigrated to Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. It was here that Tooba gave birth for the last time. Both the name and gender of that child have been withheld by the courts. We will call that child C. During their time in Dubai, Mohammad Shafia amassed considerable wealth through his ventures in the used car business and real estate investments. In Dubai, the Shafia children experienced Western culture for the first time. Even though the UAE is an Islamic country, the kids attended a private American school where they wore uniforms, learned English, and interacted with children from various parts of the world. According to Maclean's magazine, Rona felt more marginalized than ever. She wrote about how Tooba learned to drive, bought as much gold jewelry as she wanted, and used, quote, all the schemes she had to establish herself as the preferred wife. Rona recalled that Tooba did this, quote, not aggressively, through shouting and quarreling, but gently, smoothly, without putting herself at risk of any censure, end quote. Rona described herself as miserable, noting that she, quote, wouldn't question Mohammad Shafia about anything, and, quote, swallowed everything without a word because I had no option, end quote. Despite their financial success, for the next decade, the family constantly searched for a more permanent home that could offer them citizenship. They attempted to immigrate to New Zealand, but Rona failed the medical requirements. They also spent a brief period in Australia, but returned to Dubai after facing issues with their visas. By 2007, Mohammad Shafia found an opportunity to immigrate to Canada through Quebec's Immigrant Investor Program, which granted visas to affluent foreigners in exchange for significant investments. Mohammad Shafia invested $2 million in a strip mall on the outskirts of Montreal and an additional $200,000 in building a new house for his family. In June 2007, Mohammad, Tooba, and their 7 children immigrated to Canada, settling in the St. Leonard borough of Montreal. Flaunting his wealth, a new Lexus SUV was one of Mohammad's first purchases in Canada. The upscale suburb of Brossard was where Mohammad began building his $900,000 mansion.
Okay, great. You have a couple $1,000,000. Welcome to Canada. I get it. You know, we want people in that can participate financially in the country. However, investment can't be the singular driving force for approvals of immigration to Canada, right? And I think that there needs to be. I think we, as a country, need to ensure that there's an alignment and an understanding of Canada's laws, approaches to life, and values. You know, we have a really high immigration rate, Mike, and
right
of
now
course,
we do.
I'm pro-immigration. I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I am also a believer in slowing it down for proper checks and balances to ensure that on top of money, people who are willing to participate in society in the way that we want them to participate in society should be a big consideration.
Well, I mean, there's also yes, I agree with that. But there's also the fact that the infrastructure we have right now can't handle the amount of the influx of people.
Absolutely, and that's sort of a part of the conversation, but it's a slightly different point, right?
In this case, though, I agree 100% with what you're saying.
What's worse, in my mind, than infrastructure problems is societal problems, fractiousness. Mm-hmm. You know, we're already in too much of a fractured society with factions. We don't need more.
Rona was left behind in Dubai for 5 months until Mohammad sponsored her immigration from UAE, deceitfully claiming she was his cousin and that she would work as a cook and housekeeper. Rona, who had hoped for a better life in Canada, found herself still trapped and unable to escape the abusive environment. Rona pleaded with Mohammad for a divorce, but he refused to let her go. She told him she wanted $50,000 as a settlement to go to France to be with her family. He beat her and threatened her life. The children were raised in a strict and authoritarian household with Mohammad as patriarch and Tooba as his right hand, particularly after the family moved to Canada. Tooba drove the kids to and from school. They were not allowed to interact with children outside their culture. The girls, of course, began to rebel, and as they did, Mohammad and Tooba Shafia's control over the family intensified. and any attempts by his growing daughters to break free from his grip were met with severe repercussions. Mohammad became increasingly upset with his 3 eldest girls. The freedom Canada provided made it hard for their father and mother to control them. Mohammad was telling his parents about his sister's bad behavior at school and outside. Even the younger children aligned with Tooba and Mohammad became involved, often tattling on the older girls for their too Western lifestyle. They were seen with boys and had removed their head coverings and wore makeup. On hearing this, their father called them whores. Mohammad's motivations for his rage were more cultural than religious. He rarely attended mosque. His wives were much more devout than he was.
You know, his motivations and rage were all about him, Mike. They were not religious nor cultural. You know, my experience with my Muslim friends over the years, Mike, there was no strict patriarch and nobody behaved this way, right? So you know, I wouldn't chalk it up to that. I mean, of course, there's some cultural differences, but when it's this sort of level of evil, I'm sorry, but it's not cultural, and you know, and you need to assess people on their individual merits, not where they come from.
I agree. It's though within the cultural paradigm, with things the way they are, especially in that I hate using the buzzwords like patriarchal and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But within the patriarchal society that Muhammad comes from, somebody who has ego trouble, as he did, as he clearly does, it's going to set him up to be that kind of person even more so, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. And as a country, you have to say, you know, if you are an ego person, that takes some of the cultural overlay to the point where you are abusing your wife or child or pushing them down as second-rate citizens. And I'm sorry, you're not welcome.
Right. In early 2008, Zainab Shafia began dating a schoolmate named Amar, who had a criminal record and was on probation. She instructed Amar to keep their relationship secret from her older brother Hamed. During a school holiday in March 2008, while their parents were in Dubai, Zainab invited Amar to their home. Hamed discovered Amar hiding in the garage and forced him to leave. Following this incident, Zainab stopped attending school. About a year later, Zainab rekindled her relationship with Amar and left home to stay at a women's shelter, citing strict household rules and a lack of safety. Her departure enraged her father, who, along with Hamed, reported her missing to the police. When Zainab's siblings learned of her departure, they expressed fear of their father's reaction and reported their concerns to police, who escorted them home. The children later told police about the violence in their home and their fear of their dad. Despite this, Child and Family Services did not take immediate action. A few days later, police interviewed Geeti and Sahar at school, where they reiterated their desire for freedom and reported incidents of violence, including being slapped by their brother Hamed. Zainab, now 19, returned home on May 2, 2009, after Mohammed had left for Dubai, with Tooba promising that Zainab could marry Amar. In early May 2009, Mohammed expressed his desire to kill Zainab to Tooba's brother, citing her behavior and relationship as dishonorable. Zainab and Amar married on May 19, 2019. Amar's family, who also did not approve, did not attend the reception. It was there that Zainab had a private conversation with Tooba and Hamed, a conversation that changed everything. Amar told the Fifth Estate, quote, "There was a 15-20 minute talk between her and her brother and her mother. I don't know what happened during those 15-20 minutes. She came up to me and told me, I can't do this. So I don't know what they told her, because she was crying and she's like, I love you, but I cannot do this. I cannot leave my family. Until today, I'm still thinking about the answer. I'm still looking for the answer. I don't know what they told her. It felt terrible that a day before I get married, and I'm so happy, and not even 24 hours later, it's just everything is finished." End quote. Zainab and Amar were divorced 6 weeks later. Amar said he believed Tooba agreed to the wedding just to lure Zainab back home and under her thumb. Mohammad Shafia later told Tooba's uncle that he would have killed Zainab had he been at the wedding, calling his eldest daughter a whore and criticizing the uncle for informing Tooba about his plans. When it came to sister Sahar, there were also problems. In February 2009, Zainab introduced her 17-year-old sister to Ricardo Sanchez, a 23-year-old man from Honduras whom she knew from a night school French class. Sahar and Ricardo developed a serious relationship and discussed marriage. Mohammed was unaware of this relationship. Sahar and Geeti's attendance at school dropped off, as did their marks. By late April 2009, Mohammed and Tooba had dragged the girls into a meeting with the school's principal. During this meeting, Mohammed became very agitated, and later, Sahar and Geeti confided in the vice principal that they were afraid of their father and had to be cautious at school to avoid repercussions at home. In mid-May 2009, Sahar and Ricardo were seen embracing at a restaurant by Sahar's brother B, who confronted them. This encounter left Sahar terrified that her brother would expose her secret. The stress of the situation likely contributed to her fainting in class and being hospitalized a month before her death. In June 2009, Sahar told her teacher she feared her father, who was returning from a trip. She was worried that Sister A and Brother B would tell Mohammed of her relationship with Ricardo Sanchez. Sahar also sought help from a social worker to find a job so she could leave home upon reaching adulthood. However, it seemed her secret was already discovered. Investigators later found incriminating photos of Sahar and Sanchez taken from her cell phone and in Hamed's possession.
We're talking about this, she's talking to a teacher about fear, right, of her father.
Yeah.
And I worry sometimes, and I don't know if this is true, but I worry that people in the civil service or authorities kind of put kid gloves on when it comes to this thought of, it's cultural difference. Mm-hmm. Okay. We have laws, right? Abuse is abuse. Fear is fear.
Right.
And it should be looked into equally no matter what your background is.
I agree. I mean, it's interesting. It's when we're talking about this, both of us, we are pretty socially liberal, I would say.
I thought you were going to say socially awkward.
Well, there's that too. But we're both pretty socially liberal. But I
even though I'm a gay man, I think you're more socially liberal than me.
Sure.
Yeah,
that's fair enough. I'm also coming to terms with, wait a minute, a lot of this stuff with no checks and balances, as you've said, doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't.
Globally, we're seeing people hating on certain groups very easily. Mm-hmm. People are very afraid to call them out on it because, they're another culture, and you know what?
Yeah, if somebody is from another culture, and I actually think there should be a test, multiple choice, right? Yeah. No, as part of coming in, and then eventually citizenship, and you have to agree with certain things and sign it, or else you're not allowed in. I don't want people coming in that, and there are people that do. Hey, do you think gays should be illegal or should they be executed? Somebody says yes. Sorry, you're not coming in. Ask the direct questions. Do you think women need to be put down and abused if they don't fall into line? They say yes. Sorry, you're not allowed in.
Right. And if you're found to have lied on those questions, you can be deported.
And if you stay and you become a citizen, you're signing a contract now that will be revoked and you're deported.
Wow. This is a much bigger conversation than you and I are going to have here, Matthew. Let's table this for further discussion offline. Mohammed was also disappointed with 13-year-old Geeti. As we mentioned, during the second half of the 2008-2009 school year, Geeti Shafia's attendance and academic performance declined significantly, prompting the vice principal to discuss the issue with Mohammed and Tooba multiple times. Geeti had also been caught shoplifting and said that she wanted to be in a foster home away from her parents. Geeti repeatedly indicated that she was afraid of them. In June 2009, Geeti missed a week of school and returned wearing makeup and attire deemed inappropriate by the school, which led to further concerns and a directive for her to change into more modest clothing. This period marked a critical point in the family's dynamics, as their parents increasingly saw Geeti's behavior as rebellious and unacceptable. Her declining school performance, inappropriate dress, and rigid family expectations escalated tensions in their home. Mohammad decided it was time to rid himself of his troubles, so he began plotting with Tooba and his eldest son, Hamed. More after a quick break, but first, I know it's been a while, but we have a promo for you. My friend Tim, who I grew up with, is the president of Butterfly Effect Communications, and he started a new podcast about disaster communications. So check it out. Here's his promo.
How does information get from the front lines to you during a disaster? What is an emergency operations center, and how does it work to support residents? What are things you should know ahead of a disaster? Join us for the Wildfires, Floods, and Chaos Communications podcast as we learn from residents and responders who have survived large emergencies. And hey, take a moment to prepare by cleaning away branches and leaves from gutters, roofs, ditches, and decks. You'll find the Wildfires, Floods, and Chaos Communications podcast wherever you listen.
And we are back. Matthew, thoughts so far? I mean, culturally interesting thoughts we've had so far.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's a bully and a tyrant and evil, and he pulled his other wife into this and his son, and we're gonna throw the book at him, and he doesn't deserve anything else.
No, he's a bit of he's a turd.
Yep.
It was June 30th, the day before Canada Day, and people were out enjoying the sun and the water around Rideau Canal. The southern section of the canal system connects Colonel-by Lake to Lake Ontario, covering the final stretch of this historic 202-kilometer waterway. Starting about 10 kilometers north of Kingston at Colonel-by Lake, it follows the Cataraqui River south, using several locks to navigate the 50-meter elevation drop to Lake Ontario. Completed in 1832, this UNESCO World Heritage Site now primarily serves recreational purposes and is operated by Parks Canada from May to October. The section ends in Kingston, offering a unique blend of natural beauty and historical engineering where the canal meets Lake Ontario. Something was in the water that day, blocking the movement of water-going vessels through the lock. At 8:30 a.m., someone noticed an oil slick on top of the northernmost lock of the Kingston Mills lock system. Parks Canada staff inspected it closer, and there under the water, they saw a black Nissan Sentra sitting at the bottom of the lock. OPP divers found the driver's window open and the headlights off. The keys were in the ignition. Inside the vehicle were the bodies of 4 women. The car was found facing the lock wall from which it had plunged. Wedged at a 45-degree angle, it was in first gear, typically used when just starting out or in steep terrain, with the driver's seat reclined to an extreme angle, making it impossible for whoever was in that seat to see over the dashboard. The letters S and E from Sentra were missing from the car's rear and later discovered by park employees on nearby concrete and grass. The taillight assembly and the rear bumper on the driver's side were significantly damaged. After the bodies were carefully removed, the car was hoisted out of the canal by a crane. The car was found to be registered to the Shafia family, but they didn't have to look far for Mohammad and the rest of the family. At 12:30 that afternoon, Mohammad, Tooba, and Hamed walked into the Kingston police station to report Rona and the girls as missing persons. It was there they were told that the car had been found with 4 occupants. All were deceased. They, of course, acted very surprised, saying that the 4 had driven off that evening in the Sentra with Zainab at the wheel. Interestingly, police also discovered that an hour and a half before the Nissan's discovery at 7:30 a.m., 18-year-old Hamed had called 911 to report that he'd been driving his father's Lexus SUV when he'd collided with a guardrail in the parking lot of a Montreal supermarket. He claimed the single-vehicle accident had damaged the car's front bumper. This sent up some red flags with police as the damage on the SUV's front bumper seemed to line up with that seen on the car in which the bodies were found. Ahmed claimed this was just coincidence. After several days of evidence collection and examination by police, a theory emerged that the Nissan had been pushed into the lock rather than accidentally driven into the water. Why they were driving the car in the first place was strange. Investigators discovered that the used 2004 Sentra was registered to the Shafia family and purchased on June 22nd, only a week before it was found at the bottom of the lock. Oddly, besides Mohammed's Lexus SUV, the Shafia family also had a large Pontiac minivan sufficient to hold the rest of the family. The Sentra's purchase didn't add up. Why had that sat at home when it would have been a much more comfortable ride than the Sentra? As police questioned Mohammed, he gave permission to them to search the family home, and investigators focused on the other vehicles. According to the Star newspaper, fragments of plastic from the parking lot matched pieces found in the garage, and damage to the left rear of the Nissan corresponded with damage to the left front corner of the Lexus. Scrapes on the Nissan's undercarriage aligned with marks on the edge of the lock wall. Undercoating substance scraped from the car was found on the stonework. The green paint on the Lexus's front bumper matched the paint on nearby Parks Canada garbage drums. Forensic analysis confirmed that pink/red plastic deposit on the Lexus's left headlight was the same type as the Nissan's broken left taillight. Officers found some matching and non-matching damage on the Lexus compared to marks on the guardrail. The Lexus was seen at a Kingston motel where Mohammed and Mohammad Shafia rented 2 rooms around 2 a.m. on June 30th, but the night manager did not see the Nissan or the other family members. Mohammed, Tooba, and Hamed admitted to detectives that they'd stopped at the motel in Kingston on their way back to Montreal. According to them, Zainab took the keys to get some clothes, and she and her 2 sisters and Rona hopped into the car and drove off. "That's it," Mohammed said. "I don't know anything else." When Hamed was questioned, he had an elaborate tale about his trip back to Montreal in the wee hours of the night in the Lexus, hours before the 4 bodies were discovered submerged in the Sentra in the lock. Hamed said he'd driven home 300 kilometers to get his laptop, which he'd forgotten days before, switched from the SUV to the minivan, and drove back to Kingston when his father called to tell him the girls and Rona were missing.
So it's at this point that the police have to be like, okay, like he's so guilty, we just have to do all the work and figure out all the details at this point in time, because that is so obviously a lie.
Yeah, he's an 18-year-old criminal, so he's not going to be the most savvy.
So obvious a lie, right?
Yeah. When asked why he didn't bring the Lexus, which is a much nicer ride, Hamed said the minivan got better gas mileage. The investigation that ensued over the next 3 weeks led police and the Crown prosecutors to believe that Mohammed, Tooba, and Hamed orchestrated the murders to restore their perceived tarnished honor, which they believed was compromised by the daughter's westernized behaviors and defiance of traditional values. On July 18th, police intercepted a communication between Mohammed and another person that was damning. He said, quote, "They committed treason from beginning to end. They betrayed kindness, they betrayed Islam, they betrayed our religion and creed, they betrayed our tradition, they betrayed everything." End quote.
So what kindness? First of all. Secondly, that's not Islam. It's your screwed up interpretation of it.
Right.
And your creed or tradition, well, frankly, you're in a new place. You sent your kids to American school, and you're in Dubai. Like, what did he expect, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you left a place that was dangerous and horrible, war torn, right? You fled a place, and all you did was created your own. You created another Afghanistan within your own family. You created war. You created a want to escape. You created fear, abuse, and murder. You created your own little Afghanistan war in the middle of your family.
The killings of these 4 women have been called honor killings. Honor killings, a form of gender-related violence where individuals, typically women, are murdered by family members to protect or restore the family's honor, are estimated by the United Nations Population Fund to claim around 5,000 lives annually. However, the actual number is likely higher due to underreporting. These crimes are most prevalent in the Middle East and South Asia, with countries like India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan reporting significant numbers, although many cases go unreported. Honor killings also occur in other parts of the world, including Brazil, Canada, Iran, Israel, Italy, Jordan, Egypt, Sweden, Uganda, Syria, the United Kingdom, and the United States.
Yeah, and it's honor killings are often gender-related, and more often women who are the victims, but not always. Like, imagine trying to be a gay kid with a father like that, right?
Yep. I have a friend who I worked with at Shaw. I'm not going to name him because he hasn't okayed it for me to tell his story.
Yeah.
But he came out to his family, and his father essentially said, "I have no son."
Oh, God, yeah. Mike, I've known many people like that over my life.
Yeah. He was from the Middle East, so...
Well, I've known people who are white Anglo-Saxon Protestants whose parents did that to them, so...
Yeah. In Canada, honor killings are relatively rare, but they have been documented, with at least a dozen cases reported between 1999 and 2009, including this case. Other notable cases include Amandeep Kaur Dhillon, killed by her father-in-law in 2010, and Aska Parvez, murdered by her father and brother in 2007. Statistics Canada reported 1,125 gender-related homicides of women and girls between 2011 and 2021, with a small proportion potentially involving honor-related motives. The Canadian legal system treats honor killings as severe crimes. Still, the cultural dynamics behind these acts require a nuanced approach from law enforcement and social services to prevent future incidents and protect potential victims.
Yeah, I don't even recognize the idea of an honor killing. For me, it's just pure, simple murder.
Right. I agree. I think they call it honor killing because that is sort of the messy motive of the whole thing. I mean, obviously, it's at the end of the day, it's just somebody's ego is stomped on by someone else wanting freedom and not listening to this guy's dumbness.
So if somebody from a different culture, let's say some white dude murders his wife and they asked why, and he said, "Oh, she is cheating on me," why don't we call it an honor killing?
That's a great question. Tooba Mohammad and Mohammad Shafia were arrested on July 22, 2009. They were charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder on the same day. According to the Toronto Star, in November 2009, 3 months after his arrest, Hamed spoke with Musa Hadi, hired by Hamed's father to assist with the defense. Hamed claimed that after the family checked into the motel, Zainab took the Nissan for a drive with Sahar, Geeti, and Rona as passengers. Concerned about Zainab's lack of a driver's license, Hamed said he followed the Nissan in the Lexus, hoping to persuade her to return. According to Hamed, both vehicles ended up at the locks, where he accidentally hit the Nissan's taillight, breaking the Lexus's headlight. While collecting debris from the collision, Hamed claimed he saw Sahar exit the Nissan, presumably to switch places with Zainab. Sahar was later found in the driver's seat. He stated he observed the Nissan move into the grass and heard a splash, but didn't witness it entering the canal. Hamed admitted to staging an accident in Montreal to explain the Lexus' damage, placing a piece of the broken headlight at the scene before calling 911. Google searches found on Hamed's account led investigators to believe that the family had been plotting to kill the 4 women more than a month before they died. Searches included, quote, "Can a prisoner have control over their real estate? Canada mountains with lake in Quebec. Mountains on water in Quebec. To rent a boat in Montreal. Facts documentaries on murders." And on July 19th, only 11 days before the murders, he searched where to commit a murder.
So first of all, if I was ever as a suspect, my search history they would think they had, even if I didn't do anything, it would be like a open and shut case if you went only on my search history. But these people are total morons, right? Oh my gosh.
Here's the thing. If you have a good explanation of why your search history is the way it is,
yeah,
you and I do true crime as a thing. We could be searching that stuff all the time.
Yeah, and we do.
And we do. So the police find that, say something happens to somebody we know, and we're looked at. The police are going to find that, but immediately it's not really great evidence because of what we do.
You just made it sound like that you and I are plotting against somebody in the lumberyard together.
That's not the case.
No, we just boot them out if they're not nice people.
That's right. Yeah. Oy vey. Mohammad Shafia, Tooba Yahya, and their son Hamed faced trial beginning on October 20th, 2011, at the Frontenac County Courthouse in Kingston, Ontario. The proceedings, which stretched over 40 days and involved nearly 60 witnesses and more than 160 exhibits, captivated public attention due to the shocking nature of the crimes and the cultural implications of what prosecutors termed an honor killing. The trial experienced several interruptions, including a health emergency for Mohammed, a power outage, and a security threat at the courthouse. According to the prosecution's account, which was ultimately accepted by the jury, the family's journey took a sinister turn after leaving Montreal. Hamed drove the Lexus, leading the way while Sahar continuously sent messages from the Nissan. The group made an unexpected detour through Toronto before heading east on Highway 401. They stopped briefly at a McDonald's in Ajax where Tooba had a short conversation with her brother. As they continued their journey, Sahar had her final phone conversation around 10:54 p.m. The prosecution believes that Mohammad Shafia took over driving the Nissan at some point. Instead of stopping at Kingston's main exits, they drove to the secluded Kingston Mills locks. The prosecution contended that while Mohammed and Hamed went to secure motel rooms, Tooba stayed with the four victims in the Nissan. Upon returning, the three allegedly drowned the women one by one at an unknown location. The bodies were then placed back in the Nissan with the front seats reclined. In an attempt to stage an accident, they tried to drive the car into the canal. However, the car became stuck on the edge. Faced with this problem, they allegedly used the Lexus to push the Nissan fully into the water, damaging the Lexus's headlight in the process. Before fleeing the scene, they attempted to collect the broken headlight pieces, though some were left behind.
So what really struck me there when you said that was they drowned them one by one.
I mean, that's the theory. Yeah.
And probably, right? That is so brutal, so absolutely evil.
Mm-hmm.
And how, and I don't want to know. I don't want to try to figure it out. It's just, it's such a absolutely horrifying scene in my head.
Most likely a bathtub, and probably in the hotel.
So horrifying. Don't go into it. It's horrifying.
The defense presented a case arguing that the deaths of Zainab, Sahar and Geeti, and Rona Amir Muhammad were the result of a tragic accident, not premeditated murder. According to the defense, on the night of June 30th, 2009, the eldest daughter, Zainab, took the keys to the family's Nissan sedan without permission and went on a joyride with her sisters and Rona. The defense claimed that Mohammed and Tooba were at their Kingston motel when the car went into the lock, and they only learned about the incident the following day. The defense lawyers, of course, disputed the prosecution's honor-killing theory, arguing such killings are not permitted in Islam and that there is no evidence of ongoing issues between Mohammad Shafia and his daughters. Peter Kemp, Mohammad Shafia's lawyer, told the jury that Mohammed had forgiven Zainab for her brief unapproved marriage and for seeking protection at a women's shelter in April 2009. The defense also challenged the allegations of an abusive household, pointing out that despite involvement from school officials and children's services, the children were never removed from the home.
This defense is pretty weak.
Yeah, it really is. To counter the prosecution's timeline, the defense argued that there was insufficient time for the accused to drown each victim, place their bodies in the car, push it into the lock, and return to the motel where Mohammed and Hamed were seen around 2:30 a.m. They also presented Mohammad Shafia's alternative explanation, mentioned earlier, in which he claimed he had followed the girls and accidentally rear-ended their car at the lock, causing it to plunge into the water. Mohammad said that he'd tried to help but fled when he received no response, later staging an accident in Montreal to cover the damage to the family's SUV. The defense emphasized the lack of conclusive evidence about how the car entered the water, suggesting that the possibility of an accident could not be ruled out without this crucial information. They also attempted to explain away incriminating evidence, such as Mohammad Shafia's recorded comments about family honor, by offering alternative interpretations or claiming misunderstandings due to cultural and linguistic differences. On October 27, 2011, the jury visited Kingston Mills Locks, where the deaths occurred. In late January 2012, after hearing closing arguments, the jury deliberated and reached a verdict, finding all 3 defendants guilty of first-degree murder. On January 29, 2012, following the jury's guilty verdict on all 4 counts, Justice Robert Moranger imposed the mandatory sentence under Canadian law: life imprisonment with no possibility of parole for 25 years. This means the trio will not be eligible for parole consideration until 2037, a quarter century after their conviction. In delivering the sentence, Justice Moranger condemned the crimes as, quote, despicable and heinous, emphasizing that they were rooted in a, quote, completely twisted concept of honor, end quote, that has no place in civilized society. Mohammad claims he was too young to be tried as an adult and sentenced as he was. The law disagrees.
I'm being a big man defending a man's honor, but now that I'm caught, oh no, I'm just a little kid.
Right, exactly.
Can't have it both ways, Hamed. And
No.
I hope you're enjoying your time in prison.
Well, he was of age. He was 18 and a half.
Of
He was
course
tried
he
as an
was.
adult because he was an adult.
It's just like trying to play it both ways. This is so funny. What a dick.
He's
Ridiculous.
According to the Ottawa Citizen, in prison, Mohammad Shafia leveraged his radical interpretation of Islam to exert control, intimidating about 25 other inmates. Ottawa psychologist Robert Groves testified before a Senate National Security Committee describing how Mohammed used ultra-radical Islam and bullying to dominate fellow prisoners. He appointed himself as the spiritual leader during Friday prayers, creating an atmosphere of fear, especially when the regular Muslim chaplain was absent. Non-Muslim inmates felt coerced into attending these prayers, with one Christian inmate choosing social isolation over facing Mohammad Shafia's intimidation. Groves noted that while Shafia's behavior was authoritarian, there was no evidence of him inciting terrorist violence, only strict adherence to radical beliefs. This testimony came amid broader discussions about prison radicalization, with Correctional Service of Canada research indicating that federal prisons are not significant breeding grounds for extremism. The study suggested that radicalized offenders often have a moderate to high potential for reintegration into society. Despite the intimidating presence of figures like Mohammad Shafia, the prison system's response to such radical behaviors remains a complex challenge.
It would be complex, but they've got to crack that challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We can't have our jails being breeding grounds for extremists.
No. If there's people behaving that way, oh, look, you get added to your sentence for being a troublemaker. Because it's not summer camp. You're not here to voice your opinions. If you're not being fed, if you're being beat by the guards, if you're
voice your opinions, right? Yeah.
Right. If you're sitting in, solitary so long, of course we want to hear from you. But if you're being a turd and you're trying to stir shit, guess what? You get to stay longer.
Yep.
And that's it for Dark Poutine episode 328, Honourless, the Shafia family murders. That's right. It's time for voicemails. You can leave us a message at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you. Let's see who called us this week.
Well, hello. My name is Jackie. I'm here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Long-time listener, first-time caller, and I have a pretty unique story I'd like to share. I'm a super true crime fanatic. Been listening to your podcast for a very long time, and I have a true crime connection. So there was a lady that was abducted and murdered in Calgary back in the 90s. And I remember actually when this happened, it was all over the news, and she was missing actually for a very long time before they found her. And so fast forward, I'm like 11, 12 years old, and I'm going to day camp out in Strathmore. And my dad owned a gas station, and obviously I'd have to go out there, hang out at the gas station, do that, all that fun stuff, and he was going to take me to the camp. So we stopped at the gas station first, and in comes this sleazy, tattooed, grimy, greasy, gopher-looking type of guy, and he wanted to sell my dad illegal cigarettes. And he was in there all the time trying to, harass the staff or try to sell my dad something. But I remember him being like really pushy. My dad was very uncomfortable. And I just remembered I wanted to get out of there because I was late for this camp and impatient and frustrated. And so I remember finally my dad said, hey, listen, I need to take my daughter. Come back later, yada, yada, yada. And so I went to the camp. Really didn't think anything about it. And then a few weeks later, he had come into the gas station and had talked to my mother, and they were talking about Delene and how she was missing. And he said, well, would you pull over for me if I were behind you? You probably would. You know me. And it really scared my mom, and my mom just kind of, again, brushed it off. Well, it turns out that at that exact time, he was being investigated by the police, and he was actually undergoing a sting operation. They're called those Big Brother stings, and he was being surveilled by the police. So had my dad decided to get a little deal on those cigarettes, he might have been implicated somehow in all of this. But my dad was a smart man, a good law-abiding citizen, and he obviously didn't have to go to jail. But yeah, Steve Barnes was the one to actually murder Delene and ended up committing suicide in prison in 2005. So it might be a future story, but wanted to tell you about this crazy connection. And it just goes to show you never know who you meet. Could have turned out to be a killer. So anywho, enjoy. Thanks for everything. Love the show. Keep up the great work. Toodaloo.
Thank you for that, Jackie.
Yeah, that was great. I am familiar with the Delene Bossy murder, which is interesting.
So, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Like, you know how I feel about it's not Big Brother sting, it's a Mr. Big sting. If part of the sting was getting this guy, it wasn't clear, but getting the guy to do crime, to like try to sell illegal cigarettes or something, and somebody falls for that, so the police are actually creating more crime if that's happening, and would her father have been charged, right? Creating this like havoc because they're setting this guy up to do this stuff.
Who knows?
Right. And I love how Jackie said greasy, grimier, then she said gopher. And it reminded me of that song. Remember, greasy, grimy gopher guts.
Yeah, that's what she was referring
to. I love that song when I was a kid. I used to sing it all the time.
Jackie, if you can email me at darkpoutinepodcast@gmail.com, that would be fantastic because I want to talk to you more about this case. Okay.
Thanks, Jax.
Thank you. And we'll move on.
Hi, Mike and Matthew. My name is Lindy, and I am calling you from Charlottetown, PEI. And I really enjoy the podcast. I'm listening since, probably episode 10. And I remember the day that we found out that the murderer of Byron Carr was going to be finally charged. I went back to listen to the original episode that you did of Byron Carr because it was very, moving and really respectful and really just it was just a really well done episode. I'm calling because I don't think you've covered this story about a woman in PEI named Debbie Holmes, who was murdered by her ex-partner, Barry Bradley, back in 2001. Now, this case is distinct for two reasons. It made legal history, actually, in Canada. It is the first conviction in Canada of first-degree murder on the grounds of stalking a victim. And stalking became grounds for first-degree murder in 1997, and it's the first one that happened. It's also the first conviction for first-degree murder in PEI. Nobody has been convicted of first-degree murder since that law had been changed from the older crime of capital murder in the 1970s. Debbie was an Indigenous woman who was stalked by her ex-spouse, and her end was quite grisly and quite disturbing and really, really upsetting, and shows a lot of issues with the MNIW movement and just a lot of issues with domestic violence in general. So hopefully you'll take a look at it, and I think her case and finding out about Debbie and who Debbie is, or who Debbie was, would be a wonderful thing to hear. Thanks a lot, and great shit in your head.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I've added that to our cases because that sounds pretty interesting to me.
I love when people from Prince Edward Island call because it's kind of extra special because the entire
so
province
small. Yeah.
is 154,000 people. That's like the population of my city block.
Yeah.
and when somebody calls in, I actually get a little bit of a thrill that somebody from PEI is calling because I've never been there, always wanted to go, and it's a small population, and I heard it's lovely, and it's just great. So, because, Lindsay's, her POV is like almost a representative sample statistically of PEI.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's really cool. It's a great place.
Have you been there?
Oh my gosh, a bunch of times.
It's gorgeous.
Carol and I honeymooned there.
I'm looking at a photo with this really beautiful church. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks lovely.
Yeah, Carol and I, like I say, honeymooned there many, many years ago, 1998. So we were there when, the Swiss Air 111 accident happened. So
okay.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy, but. Yeah. So if you ever want to see a beautiful place, go to PEI, but go in at the end of August or the beginning of September because there's no tourists there.
Nice.
You will have beautiful red clay beaches all to yourself.
Do they get lots of tourists?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. In the summertime, lots of tourists. Anne of Green Gables, house is there. The fictional house. But you'll see a lot of tourists, say, from Japan because there was a popular anime about Anne of Green Gables as well. So
probably lots of Americans as well because it's not far from the States there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. It is a gorgeous place. And it is some place that if you have not seen, you need to see. All right. Let's see. We have, was that 2? Yes, it was. So here's a 3rd. Here's another voicemail.
Hey, I was just listening to the latest. It's Phaedra from Port Coquitlam. No, I do not have a lighthouse or run a lighthouse, Matthew. That's what you said last time. I'm thinking about the Mr. Big thing. First time I heard about the Mr. Big thing, I was watching a documentary on Prime where they're trying to get this guy for like a 1970s murder. And the thing was, apparently he didn't do it. But the whole thing was, is like, he met these people, he's been with them for 6 months, he thought these people were his best friends, they dragged him into whatever, ended up being a Mr. Big sting, and that was the first time I heard about it because I couldn't believe something like that was even legal, especially for Canada. Like, even the States are like, dude, that is wrong. And it's just like, you get people to think that you're their friend, that you're their confidant, and you actually get into that whole psychological thing, and that is, like, super wrong. Like, that's why I'm not down with Mr. Big things, and every single time I hear about one, I just I cannot believe that it's legal, especially in Canada. Like, it's just an invasion of privacy, and just getting in there, that doesn't make any sense to me. So, Matthew, I agree with that. Those Mr. Big things are absolutely awful. Otherwise, the episode is really good. But, yeah, I just had to say that about the Mr. Big things. I think they're immoral. Just to make somebody think that you're like their best friend and you've been friends for 6 to 8 months and then find out they're trying to lure you into something else. Like, not only could you go to jail or not go to jail, but, like, now you're, like, screwed where you don't trust anybody anymore because, just my opinion, Phaedra from Poco, and go ahead and take a shit in that tube.
Thanks, Phaedra.
Just your opinion, but the correct one.
Yes. I am of like mind. I have to play the straight man kind of thing on this podcast.
Oh! Oh. Hello. Hi, coming up and leave it at my door. Thanks.
Amazon?
Instacart grocery delivery. Sorry
okay. So,
they said they're coming between 6:30 and 7:30. So
I'm the straight man.
That's funny.
All right. We've got a fourth voicemail.
Oh, sure.
For fuck's sake.
Hello. You know what they do, Mike?
What?
They always think it's the right-hand door, even there's a huge sign saying it's the left-hand door.
Oh, and then they buzz back, and then they realize.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. All right, let's listen to our fourth voicemail. We've got a bunch. Yeah.
I really don't care if you sat in your hat, if you did a floater in your boater or dropped a log in your toboggan. For all I care, you can duke in your toque. You can crap in your cap. You can make some brown in your crown. Just please don't put your weenie in your beanie. For that, you must use your pith helmet. This is Granny in Ohio saying keep up the good work. I just wanted to make you giggle.
Fantastic.
Oh my God.
That was the coolest thing I've ever heard.
Granny in Ohio, you can call back anytime.
Granny in Ohio, call in on occasion and give us other adult nursery rhymes. It's fantastic.
Oh my goodness gracious me.
Yeah, I think Granny needs to be like Satan and Big
Pete.
Big Pete. Yeah. Cameo appearances.
Yes.
Thank you, Granny in Ohio.
Thank you so much. That's it for this week's voicemails. Again, you can leave us one at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you, even if it is just to say hi and to tell us to go shit in our hats. If you're stumped for what to chat with us about, a quick story as well. Alrighty, let's move on. We have some patrons and donut money donors this week. Our first patron is Melissa Yerman, and Melissa is from Evanston, Illinois. Evanston, Illinois. Melissa Yerman. What do you think Melissa Yerman does there in Evanston, Matthew?
She's a Lake Michigan goose whisperer.
Oh, she whispers to geese in Lake Michigan. Well, that's fantastic.
She negotiates peace treaties amongst the local geese populations and tribes.
The warring factions.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's good. Someone's going to do it.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thanks, Melissa. That was a weird one, Matthew. Next, we have from Lethbridge, Alberta. I met someone from Lethbridge the other day. Megan Hart. Thank you, Megan. And what does Megan do there in Lethbridge besides getting her hair blown by the wind?
Well, that's funny that you'd say that because she actually takes tourists to do Chinook windsurfing.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, so she's a navigator of the Chinook wind.
Well, that's hilarious.
Yep.
Well, we do have another patron, and her name is Channa Ross, and Channa calls us from time to time from Clam Point, Nova Scotia. Clam Point.
Now I want clams.
Right? What kind of clams do you prefer? Do you like yours fried or you steamed with butter? What do you like?
I like, well, they're different types of clams, right?
Clam chowder is nice.
Clam chowder is good. Fried is good. The little ones, they're not clams mussels, but like the mussels in the pasta dish with.
Yep.
That one I love.
There you go.
Yeah. And she's actually a fashion designer.
Okay.
And she uses kelp to make the clothes.
Well, thank you, Channa. We really appreciate you, especially your detailed phone calls. And Channa sent me research for a case recently, and she did a lot of work putting it together. So I'm working on creating an episode from that particular case. Yeah.
Well, half solved. So she gave you lots of good research.
Yep, she gave me tons and tons of good research.
That's great.
And that's it for our patrons and Donut Money donors for this week.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks to all our patrons and Donut Money donors, past and present, for your generosity. It helps to keep the show going. You can become a patron of Dark Poutine at patreon.com/darkpoutine. For a one-time donation, you can send us donut money via PayPal using our email address, darkpoutinepodcast@gmail.com. If you don't already subscribe to the show, it would mean a lot if you did. You can easily find Dark Poutine on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you haven't gotten yours yet, my book, Murder, Madness, and Mayhem, is available to order via a link on the Dark Poutine website. And speaking of darkpoutine.com, please check it out for show notes and other cool stuff. We'd appreciate it if you took the time to give Dark Poutine a like or a follow on Facebook and Instagram. Most importantly, thank you for listening, and tell your friends about us. Word of mouth is a powerful thing.
And that's it for Dark Poutine as well. So until next time, don't forget to be a good egg and not a bad apple.
Because the world has enough of them already.
Oh my God, there's so many bad apples. But there's more good eggs, really. If you think about it, the good eggs outweigh the bad apples in a big way.
Most of us are just quiet.
Right. Well, most of us, not including the two of us. Bye.
Bye.